Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and this, of course, is the Independence Day, 4th of July version of the David Carrier Show, which means we are live, and I haven't blown off any fingers. See, right there? I haven't blown off any fingers. You can tell on radio for fireworks. There you go. Regrew the ones from last year, and now all is well. So don't you be practice fireworks safety, okay? How about that? Anyway, it is the 4th of July, and this is the David Carrier Show. And if you have any question, comment, or concern as you're, playing with the fireworks and cooking up the hot dogs and all that good, etc., now's the time to give us a call, 616-774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. We'll get your question, comment, or concern on the air, especially if it has to do with estate planning, which would be wills, trusts, and probate. If you want to talk about elder law, which is how do we make sure that you don't go broke. Kind of important, it seems like to me. I don't know, maybe you don't care about it, but that's all right. I do enough caring for both of us. We also deal with real estate and business law. So if you have a business that you'd like to keep going, if you're wondering, I got this rental property here, and how do I protect that? Now, is that a business law question? Is that a real estate question? A little bit of both, of course. And so now's the time to call us, 616-774-2424. You can also drop me an email. Love to get the emails. David most of the time. I don't always love to get the emails, but most of the time, most of the time. 616, David at davidcarrierlaw.com. David at davidcarrierlaw.com. That's where you can send the emails. Of course, you can always call the office, 800-317-2812. 800-317-2812. If you'd like to give me an earful in person, that would be great. So last couple of weeks, had some lively action, right, at the Supreme Court. Wow, looks like we've got a bunch of folks on the Supreme Court actually willing to be dedicated to the Constitution. What do you know? Including things like, and this is the thing on Independence Day, it seems like to me, without focusing too much on, the issues of the day. We want to do that a little bit, but, wherever you come down on the big issues of the day, it seems like there are some fundamental things that you get as an American. And then there are some things also fundamental, also very, very, what do you call them? Very, fundamental is a good word. Core to people's living and all the rest of this stuff. And I think you saw this in the Supreme Court decisions that came out recently. If you look at more than the obvious, the Roe versus Wade one, more than the Second Amendment one. But those are two good examples because you have people saying, well, wait a second. You guys said that the Constitution doesn't do this, right, on the abortion thing, but it does do this on the Second Amendment thing. Well, you see how inconsistent that is, which drives you nuts because you just have to read the thing and you know that they're talking about keep and bear arms. I mean, it's in there. It's the Second Amendment, not the 10th, not the first, but not the 10th either. And certainly not the 14th. So, I mean, it wasn't wasn't an afterthought. It was right up there, right? It was one of the things that we never would have gotten the Constitution done without the Bill of Rights, and that was in there. Okay. On the other hand, they also said, look, you can't take away from people the ability to decide things on their own, right? To the extent that it isn't explicit in the Constitution. One of the things it says in there, hey, all rights not granted to the federal government are reserved to the states. What does that mean? That means that on issues of fundamental importance to people, right? And you can get both sides on the abortion debate, obviously. You get both sides on that one. People feel very strongly on either way. And let's not get into the merits of it because, let's not go there. Instead, let's look at it from a America point of view, from a 4th of July point of view. Some people are like, United States is dead, or they say all these horrible things. And it's like, look, you're living in a country, right, where you got at least 50, plus the territories, right? You got at least 50 different ways of approaching the problem. If this is an issue, whatever the issue is, of fundamental importance to you, right? You've got your own representatives, you got your own folks out there that you can go and talk to about it, right? It wasn't decided for you in Brussels or in The Hague or in Paris or London or wherever, Athens, whatever, right? You get to decide, in your own little laboratory of democracy. And you say, oh, but those people over there are horrible. They're all, if I wouldn't want to live there, well, right, okay, so don't live there. You don't like what Alabama's doing. You don't like what Mississippi's doing. You don't like what Michigan's doing, right? Well, don't live there. Move. I mean, one of the most fundamental rights in the Constitution, which I think gets overlooked because freedom of speech and all the rest, is the right of association, right? Like the states can't keep you out. Okay, you want to go someplace where it's more amenable to you? Look at California and Texas. Look at all the folks trucking out of California going to Texas. Why? It's not because the weather's better in Texas. It's not. The weather in California, I was just talking to a fellow a couple weekends ago. He's in the movie, so, he's not moving. He's not leaving Texas anyway. California, living in L.A., because I was like, well, what the heck are you still doing in California? You seem like got little kids and everything else. You seem like a normal guy to me, interesting kind of character. He goes, well, not a lot of film directing going on in Austin or Texas, right? And besides the weather, and California really is, despite everything they've done to ruin it, and there's a lot of destruction in a country, as somebody said. There's a lot of ways to wreck it, and it takes a long time. It takes quite a while to do so, right? There's a lot of I forget who said it, but it was one of those things. One of those sayings, there's a lot of ruin in a country. In other words, there's a lot of, you can slide downhill for quite a while. California's like that, where, sooner or later they'll have figured out how to wreck the whole damn thing. But in the meantime, the weather is fantastic. It's amazing place out there, for many reasons amazing. But my point is, he likes California. He likes the thing. He's staying in California. He's not going to Texas. If you want to know sort of the relative who's moving where, U-Haul is always a good indicator. If you find out how much does it take to rent a U-Haul to go from L.A. To Dallas, and I'll get the actual numbers for you after the break, right? But if you want to know, you want to go from L.A. to Dallas, right? It's expensive. You want to go from Dallas to L.A., it's pretty cheap. And I'll get you the exact numbers on that, which kind of indicates which way people are going on the thing. They're not moving from Dallas to L.A. That's the point, because it's so darn cheap. But it's pretty expensive. You're in competition with a lot of other people if you want to go in the other direction. But that's the beauty of America, right? You want to go where people, it's like that old song, you want to go where everybody knows your name. Okay, fine. Where people are all the same. Well, not all the same, but consistent values, right? And you have that opportunity to do that. And that's what some of these cases were about. And people want to say it's about the substantive issue, whether it's guns or abortion, whatever. They want to say, oh, it's about that. And they're willing to sacrifice the process for the result. We have to resist that, okay? Every true American on Independence Day, you've got to realize we didn't fight for the right of other people to tell us what to do. We didn't fight and die so that so that judges could make stuff up. We did fight and die so that judges could enforce the fundamental agreements that were made. That's what Constitution is. It's a fundamental agreement, okay, that you sign on to when you join the Union. They had one where Hawaii was, they were going to strike down the Second Amendment, basically, because what Hawaii had in pre-colonial times or something like this. Well, listen, when they joined the United States back in the, what was it, in the 50s, I guess, right? When they joined, they signed on for the Second Amendment. They signed on for all of that when they joined the Union. So did Alaska. So you don't get to go back to prehistory or something and say, ooh, we were against guns then, and so when we joined, we kind of reserved this. That's not how it works. It's not how the Constitution works, not how it's ever worked. Okay? So there are fundamental things that govern our relationships, and then there are things that haven't. You get to decide the things that haven't. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Now's the time to give us a call, 616-774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. We'll get your question, comment, or concern on the air. How about that? You can also email me, as I said, david@davidcarrierlaw.com. Go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com. We've been working for, it seems like forever, since the dawn of time on redoing the website, davidcarrierlaw.com. And slur all those words together. .com, that's the website. And hopefully in the next 6 or 7 years, it'll launch in time for me to be, I don't know, retired, whatever. But anyway, we're working on it. So go to the website. There's still good stuff on there. Don't worry about it. It'll get better and better. But right now, 616-774-2424. You know, a lot of folks are at the cottage this weekend. A lot of people get the long weekend, head off for the lake, the pond, the cottage, or sometimes it's the cabin in the woods. And there are some things that folks need to do with the cabin in the woods, so that, or the cottage, or the hunting property, or what have you, so that it does not turn into a real curse on your family. See, there's a life cycle to these properties, a life cycle to cottages. When kids are little, right, and they're going to grandma's cottage or whatever, oh boy, is it magical, right? Little kids just love going to the lake or out in the woods or what have you. You know, it's a getaway, it's special, it's fun. You get to, have campfires and throw firecrackers and stuff like this. This is when you're a little kid. Boy, is it really cool. Then, as you get to be a teenager and interested in other things, other people perhaps, do we got to go there? It's so dumb. It smells bad. The teenager, the sullen teenager has got other things on his or her mind, and going to the lake is no longer the wonderful thing it was. It's sort of we have to kind of thing. Then, as the sullen teenager becomes the young adult, they've got other things on their mind, especially today in record inflation, record gas prices, record everything that's bad. They got other things on their mind besides going to the cottage, right? So it goes from being a super duper place to not cool. And then as you get in your 20s or what have you, going to college, this and that, you've got other needs, right? Well, your parents do too, right? Looking at you, they've got other things to do. And then finally, when you get kids of your own, it's like, too bad we sold the cottage. It was so much fun. And, this is when you get kids of your own. But by then it's too late because the cottage, the hunting property, the what have you, is long gone, right? This is the life cycle of the cottage. It goes from joy through aversion to opportunity to get rid of it, and then regret. That's what you see. It's not like the stages of dying. I haven't done any research on this. It's just what I've seen over the last 32 years. You kind of get a sense of this stuff. So what people usually do to protect the cottage is really very destructive. They'll put all the kids on the deed. You see that a lot. Very popular way of doing it. And you can do it as last man standing, right? The last person who's alive gets the whole thing. We've seen that. We've also seen it as each kid has a chunk of it. That's another way. To do it. Also, pretty destructive of family harmony and all the rest. And the problem with these two, with both of them, is that there are no rules. There's no. Remember, we've got a constitution, yeah, and we got a way of resolving our differences, yeah, and we got still, despite that, more robust than anywhere else on the planet, right? You still have nut people who want to attack the foundation of what lets us get along. You know, they're going to go protest at the justices' houses and stuff like this. Very illegal and all the rest, but they want to intimidate the judges and the justices. Really terrible stuff, terrible. But there's nothing like that when you see with the cottages. There's no way to resolve these differences. And the problem is that the way you're doing it, when you put the kids on the deed, which is just horrendous, but when you put the kids on the deed with the rights of survivorship, which a lot of folks do, joint tenants with rights of survivorship, is like the total worst, because not only are there no rules, right? You say, well, no, everyone will contribute. Everybody will pay their share of taxes. They'll take out the garbage. They'll clean the place up. Or they won't be able to go there. Yeah, says you. But you do this, which is what many, many people do. It's probably the most popular way of doing it. It's the worst, but it's the most popular. Your kids can bring their friends to your house, to your cottage, right? They don't have to ask your permission. They own it. What were you thinking? Oh, I'm going to make it easy for them. That's what you're thinking. I get it. Oh, and this is a cheap way to do it. Yeah, I understand that part too, right? But now you can't kick them out. It's their house as much as it is yours, right? Oh, my kids would never do that. Hardy, har, har. Yeah, you whistling past the graveyard, why don't you? You don't have one knuckle-headed kid? I mean, look around you. There are kids out there who can't tell boys and girls. What do you... Not your kids. That would never happen. No, I'm sure. But anyway, fundamental concepts that you think are rooted are not so in many cases. And, you know, you can tell me this will never happen in my family. And, okay, who might argue? But not the best idea in the world. And it's the same way with, so that's joint tenants with rights of survivorship. The other one, tenants in common, you know, where you just name them all. And you don't say rights of survivorship, and you don't say joint tenancy, you just name everybody. Or you say tenants in common, you could do that too. Either way, it's the same deal, right? There's no obligation to pay taxes. You can't enforce them an obligation to flush the toilet. I got a brother who doesn't flush the toilet. You know why? Conserve water. That's only for number one, incidentally. But it drives everyone else. It's like, yuck. Are you kidding me? You know? I'm saving water. Hey, listen, we're on a well. Okay, it recycles immediately. You're not saving anything. You know, but that's his thing. Okay, fine, it's his thing. Right? But that's what you have to put up with, right? When you have no rules. You can't exclude them. Well, you actually can, but, you know, it's stuff like that. Or people who think they're doing you a favor by leaving the bread in the refrigerator or something, like, you know, or, yeah, they didn't empty the dishwasher or take out the garbage when it was their turn, or, you know who I'm talking about. They left the lawn chairs out. I mean, come on. And you can't stop them with the way that people do it, putting the kids on. You can't stop them. We'll get into more of this when I'll ruin your whole 4th of July weekend at the cottage. How about that? You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier. But there is a solution for all this, of course. Your family's personal attorney. Bum, 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 bum. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Now's the time for you to call 616-774-2424. 24. 616-774-2424. Don't tell me it's long distance. I know you got a cell phone. No sense doing those 800 numbers anymore, is there really? That's one good thing about all the cell phones and whatnot. But if you're relaxing at the cottage and you're thinking, oh, honey, we took care of everything. We put all the kids on the deed. Yeah, now I'm here to ruin your weekend. Ruin it. Because, as I said before, there is a life cycle to cottages. Little kids love them. Teenagers hate them. Young adults sell the damn thing to pay for college, a new car, or something else. And then we get to young parents who regret having done that while they were younger, namely selling it and wishing it was still around. There is an answer to this. There's also an answer to the bickering, strife, and all the horrible things that happen when people own properties jointly. You know that there's one kid in your family who leaves the seat up. Well, that's what's the matter with that? The problem is when they leave the leftovers in the refrigerator and now it stinks. Or worse, they don't take the garbage out and now we got flies. You know what it's like. And, like I said, they leave the, oh, what do you mean? I put gas in it? Yeah, it must have evaporated. Right. Sure. What do you mean I used up all the charcoal? No, the LP tank was full. I'm sure of it. Whatever. So, these are the things that, they happen. So do I. And there's no rules when you put the kids on the deed, okay? You can't even get them to pay the taxes. And mom and dad think they're safe. They put the kids on the deed, and they think, well, la-di-da, I'm okay. I've taken care of that. No, what you've done is you've invited the mud wrestling championships to take place in your front yard because your kid is a member of that group, right? And you say, well, no, I could exclude the kid. No, you can't. Not if you put him on the deed. What are you thinking? And here's the thing. 2 ways of doing that. What we call joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, meaning when one person dies, the other people get it all, and which is usually what folks do. Disastrous, but they do it. Even with the ladybird deed, you think, oh, I don't have to worry about that because I got a ladybird deed. Listen, all you're doing is you're pushing off the trouble onto the next generation, right? Now your kids have got to deal with that idiot. Thanks for nothing, mom and dad. Maybe you should have done it correctly. But what I see all the time is where people put their kids on right now. Right now. Oh, it's good for Medicaid, somebody told me. Oh, come on. Are you joking? Or what have you. And then, see, you can't get rid of the kid. The kid who misbehaves, the kid who brings all his friends on 4th of July and never pays the taxes and utilities upkeep, whatever, you can't stop them. You can't stop them. They own the property. They got the deed. If they have any idea what their legal rights are, and guess what? Thanks to YouTube and clickety-click on the interwebs and all the rest of that stuff, more of them know exactly what they can do, right? You can't kick them out. You can't regulate the thing. You can't, as the parent. What do you think the siblings can do? Nothing. You say, oh, well, my kids would never do that. Really? Well, maybe they wouldn't. See, because here's the thing. Here's the problem with this stuff. It's like, oh, you're being negative. That's what I get. Oh, you're being negative. It's like, yeah, I'm being negative. Darn right I'm being negative. Guess what? The people who invented seatbelts, they were being pretty negative too. They were against people going through the windshield. I'm against people losing the cottage, okay? I'm against people, not getting along. And like, who was it? Robert Frost said, good fences make good neighbors, okay? When everybody has a clear set of expectations, right, now things tend to work out better. Not perfect. We're human beings. I get that, right? When in the course of human events, right, it becomes necessary for kids to own the cottage together, it is altogether right and what did they say? However they said in the Declaration of Independence. You got to set out your reasons. Well, set out your reasons. I don't want it. It's too hard. Get over yourself, right? You need to set out what the rules are. And the good news is we've done it for you. How about that? So here's the idea. What everybody does when they put the kids on the deed. And here's the thing. I'm not saying it always fails. It doesn't always fail. It doesn't have to fail. Because you do have families, a lot of families, right, Kids are good-spirited, all the rest of it. They don't know what their legal rights are actually, and so you can kind of skate by, right? And they want to stay in the good graces with their siblings and all the rest of it. Yeah, that happens. Good things happen. Okay, you don't drive into a tree every time you get in your automobile. I get it. Okay, that's good that you don't drive into trees whenever you get into the car. Good. That doesn't mean you don't have airbags in the damn thing, and it doesn't mean you don't buckle up. You do both. Why? Because you might. This might be the time. And the results are catastrophic. See, you were trying to do a good thing with the cottage, and you wind up doing something horrible. And I don't say it always happens, but I'm saying you don't have any reason for thinking that this is going to be the good time. Right? You just don't know. Right? Why not know? Why not set things up so you do know? Now, in order to do that, what many people have done, many people have done the limited liability company, the LLC. There was a guy up by Traverse City, I believe was where he was. He wrote a book on it. He long since passed, but he wrote this book about putting the cottage in the LLC. And it's a good book. It is. And it talks about the rules and regulations and how you do this and how you do that. And it's like, okay, that makes some sense because it does answer the rules question. Who gets to use the cottage on the 4th of July? All right, are we going to rotate this thing through? Can you show up with 30 of your friends unannounced, right? Set up on the front lawn and camp out? Well, the answer is if you're a joint tenant, yeah, you can do that. Local zoning apart, But you can do that. They could do that, the other kids. If they're joint owners, if they're tenants in common, yeah, they can do that. And you can't stop them. It's not trespassing. What do you mean trespassing? I own the place. Yeah, well, you didn't pay the taxes, the utilities, the upkeep. I'm not a renter. I own it. So I guess the government could take it away from me for not paying the taxes, but you can't. I own it just as much as you do. Blows people's minds when you tell them that. Oh, it can't work like that. Yeah, it sure does work like that. So first and foremost, let's get some rules, and the LLC answers the question of the rules, right? Because now you have a lottery, whatever, people own it together. Mom and dad could set it up and then give shares to the kids, and you think, whoa, that's pretty good. Plus, now you're not responsible for what the biker gang does at the cottage, which you were when you were joint tenants. You're an owner. Somebody takes the boat out to the middle of the thing, tries to swim back, they drown, they sue you. All right? Terrible. Well, you avoid that with the LLC. Now, you could still lose the cottage. Yeah, you could lose the cottage, but at least you're not going to lose your own home when you do the LLC. But here's the problem with setting it up, what I call the corporate model. So the first one, this is where you put everyone on the deed. We call that the circular firing squad. Okay? You're all shooting at each other. You get all the kids set up to shoot at you. Maybe they don't. Maybe they miss. Okay? But you set up situation terrible. You have no reason for thinking it will work. You have every reason for thinking it'll blow up in your face, despite the fact that it doesn't always. Right? So that's the circular firing squad is the first one. Second is the corporate model. The problem with the corporate model is you can get out of it. The kids can say, hey, I don't want to do it anymore. I want my money. Right? Remember the young adult problem? You need tuition. You need a car. You need to pay your taxes. You need the orthodontia for the kids. There's a million claims on your do-re-mi. Right? Million claims. I haven't been to the cottage in a long time. I don't want to sell it. Okay. And here's what happens when you sell it. Right? Because in there, in the LLC, is a mechanism for you to sell your share of the property. No one else will buy it. You got to sell it to the family members, right? Because nobody else wants to, get into that mess. And when we get back, I'll explain exactly what the problem is when you sell it. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. You can still give me a call, 616-774-2424, 616-774-2424. That'll get you to the studio. Call us at the office, 800-317-2824. 2812. You got a cottage and you're doing it wrong? Yeah, unless you're a client of ours. I don't think I can be held liable for that. Anyway, you probably are doing it wrong. 800-317-2812. Call the office or just email me, david@davidcarrierlaw.com. So here's the deal with cottages. Let me just recap real briefly. There's a life cycle. Little kid, love it. Teenager, hate it. Young adult, I got other things to spend that money on. And older with kids, a little bit older adult with children. Oh, what happened to Grandma's cottage? Oh, it was so nice, and we had to sell it. The answer is no, you didn't have to sell it. As a matter of fact, you could have figured out something else to do, because if Grandma didn't have a cottage, then you would have figured out something else to do, because there are families that don't have cottages and don't sell them. And that's the problem, my friends, with the corporate model. First model that people do, circular firing squad. This is when you put everyone on the deed. Terrible, horrible. Can't believe people do it, but they do it all the time. What they don't realize is you just created a total mess. You know how you got kids and they got to split something? This is the way it was in my family. 8 kids, right? If, okay, you had 2 kids and they were going to split something, right? Or even more. So you got a candy bar or you got a donut or whatever the heck it was. You got to split it. It's like one splits it, the other one gets first choice. Are you with me on this? Right? You split it, I get first choice. So you want to be very equal. That was the idea. Set up a dynamic where it's a virtuous dynamic where everyone's trying to be equal, right? Unless you just didn't care, give the other one the big half. Who cares? But that's not how people usually operate. Now, with the first one where you put all the kids on the deed, that doesn't happen because everybody gets all of it. That's the theory behind that. Terrible. Okay, so everyone can use it. There's no rules, just right. You hear about that? No rules, just right. No, just wrong. No rules, and that's wrong. Because now you can show up whenever you want. You don't have to pay the taxes. Put it all on the one who's willing to do it. Okay? And you say, well, that leads to bad feelings. Yes, and there are people out there who don't care. You do this tenants in common thing, right? Especially with the tenants in common thing. Now you've got the in-law. They never liked you anyway. You didn't particularly care for them. Or the kid sells the interest for cheap because nobody really wants to buy it. But now that person, if they realize what they're buying, has an unlimited right to use the property. Nothing you can do about it. Whoopsies. So that's the first most popular thing. It's the absolute worst, but it's the cheapest, and so everybody goes with that one. Most. Then there's the guy who wrote the book on here's how you do the LLC model, which is great. Okay, now you've got some rules. But the problem is, with this, there's a way to get out. There's a way for that, I have the financial need. I want to get out of the thing. And so they get out, right? They say, I'll sell my interest. The problem with this one is, and you can limit it to family members so you don't have to worry about the biker gang showing up. Apologies to biker gangs. Showing up and pitching tents and doing donuts on the front lawn. You don't have to worry about that, okay? Because you're limited in who you can sell the thing to, all right? And you can have rules about who gets to use it and when and all. So that's very positive step, right in the correct direction. They're very good. The problem is you wanted this thing to go on through the generations. But as soon as one of them wants out, they all get out. As soon as one of them says, I'm cashing it in, the other one's like, why the hell should I pay you? And they don't have the money. That's the other thing. Must be the money. Yeah, well, it's the money, but they don't have the money. And so without the money, now you wind up with the whole thing collapses. Right? Because the other kids don't have the money and they don't feel like paying off the sibling, and why can't they be blah, blah, blah. All that stuff happens, right? And now you left the cottage for the kids under this model, spent the extra do-re-mi to get it, and the expectation was, now I've solved those problems, so now there's rules, there's orderly thing. If the kid wants to get out, they can get out. Why not? Okay. Very short-sighted, it seems like to me. As soon as one of them wants out, they all get out. doesn't answer the fundamental question, which gets us to the third thing, which is what I've been doing now for, 20 some odd years. And we call it the national park model. And the idea here is you weren't leaving the kids, it's not like you didn't know how to leave them money. See, with the corporate model, it's like you're leaving them money because they can cash it in. Well, you knew how to do that. You knew how to leave money if that's what you wanted to do. So what were you doing here? What were you thinking when you left them the cottage? Same way with the circular firing squad. You could have sold the thing, give them money, but that was the idea. But no, you had a bigger idea, a better idea, a worthy idea, a very generous impulse to leave something to the kids that they could never get again. All right? That's what the national park system is. This is like the 200th anniversary of Ulysses S. Grant signing into, I think it was Yellowstone. I may be wrong. I think it was Yellowstone, was the first national park. And it's either 150 years or 200, can't be 200 years. Must be 150 years, something like that, since the first national park. That Ulysses S. Grant, hero of the Union, Civil War and all that, he's the one who started this, okay? Why did they start the national parks? Because I'm telling you, because here's the answer to the question. If you waste the opportunity of preserving that, you can't get it back, right? That's why we have all these state parks and conservation and all the rest of it. Big deal in the United States. Why? Number one, we have so much land, and so much of it is so neat, so cool, right? That we don't want, to pave paradise and put up a parking lot. We need to pave some things, and we need to put up parking lots. I get it. But not everywhere. Not Yosemite, we don't. Not the Porcupine Mountains, we don't. All right? Not the George Washington Parkway, we don't. Not the Shenandoah Valley, we don't. All right? We don't need to put it up everywhere. We can preserve some of that, all right, for future generations. And here's the deal. You don't get to cash in your share of Yosemite because you hate California. There's plenty of reasons for hating California. But you don't get to cash in your share. Why should the kids be able to cash in their share of the cottage, right? Because you couldn't make it work. If 330 million Americans could each say, well, I'm not going to go to Yosemite, I'm not going to go to Yellowstone, that Joshua Tree in the Dinosaur National Monument, man, I want my share of those. Cash me in. That's ridiculous. It wouldn't work. Couldn't work. Couldn't possibly accomplish the goal of preserving what you've got. And that's the model that we use, right, when we do the cottage. Right? You go to Yosemite, you got to pay for a campground. You got to pay for the tag to drive on the roads. You got to pay. Right, exactly. So the kids got to pay. There's rules. There's ways to manage the thing, okay? But that's possible. You can do that. Got a question about it? Give us a call. 774-2424, area code 616. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Hello, and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And yeah, it's the 4th of July weekend, but somebody's gotta be here, right? Somebody's gotta hold down the fort, do a live show, right? And why not me? So give us a call, why don't you? Don't let me be lonely. 616-774-2424, area code 616-774-2424. 616-774-2424. Thinking of going down to the Battle Creek Air Show. Has anyone been there? It's got the Thunderbirds and all kinds of other. Looks like a great deal. And meant to go yesterday, never got around to it. So heading out this morning. So anyway, if you've been, you want to give us a live update on the Battle Creek with the balloons and the airplanes and loud noises and all that kind of 4th of July type stuff. Kind of looking forward to it. Have you ever been to enough air shows? I have never been to enough air shows in my life. I love air shows. I've only been to half a dozen, maybe. That's one of those things. I gotta redress the balance. Anyway, if you have a question, comment, or concern about wills, trusts, or probate, if you're wondering how do we beat the high cost of long-term care, all that kind of thing, well, now's the time to call. 616-774-2424. That'd be estate planning and elder law. We also deal with real estate and business law. So if you have a question, a comment, or concern about starting a business, stopping a business, keeping the business going. Real estate, there's another one. I think the bubble is just about over. There was that manic buying. We saw a lot of that when the interest rates were very low. I think a lot of people got in while the getting was good. I'm not saying that the bloom is entirely off the rose just yet, because interest rates, what are they, 5, 5.5, something like that? Yeah, they're double what they used to be, which means that the cost doesn't double, but it goes way up. It's probably 30-40% more than it used to be to buy a house now if you look at the monthly payment, which of course is the way we look at these things, right? It's still cheaper than rent, right? But you don't see like I say, you don't see the manic panic, the buying that you used to, people buying stuff sight unseen. The market has cooled down. Of course, the interest rates have gone up. I haven't seen that reflected in CDs yet. Hopefully we will. Oh, just got a note, major accident at the Battle Creek Air Show yesterday. Well, we'll report on that. I hope nobody got hurt. Jet truck driver killed in air show accident. Oh, so a guy who was, one of the loud things that they have at those is jet-powered trucks. And, I remember back in the day they had this Mechazilla thing that ate cars and, burned them up and crunched them and stuff. It was pretty cool, I think. And apparently this guy, you've seen those too, where they run on the ground. I don't know what happened yet. We'll see. I'll report back in the next segment on the jet truck driver who passed, who was killed, in an air show accident. So, all right, well, we'll get on that. Thank goodness it wasn't the Thunderbirds or the F-35s or, the wing walkers or the parachutists or all the rest of the stuff. Sad it was this guy. But, yeah, so anyway, that's what we deal with here. If you have a question about any of that stuff, give us a call. It doesn't hurt, all right? We can get your question on the air and knock it around a little bit, maybe come up with, if not an answer. Yeah, it's pretty tough on the radio to come up with an answer because so much of this depends on looking at the documents, seeing what's going on. Now, a lot of folks are at the lake. A lot of folks are at the cabin in the woods this weekend. You're out there enjoying a little bucolic retreat. And that's great. That's great. And here's the thing about cottages, especially if you're on a body of water that's bigger than a puddle, right? If you're on a body of water, the cost of those things, now maybe it's moderating a little bit, but the cost is skyrocketed, okay? Very, very expensive to buy any of that stuff anymore. Your kids can't afford it. You can't afford it, right? You got the cottage from mom or dad, whatever. So we got a lot of folks out there who have cottages, and that there's no way that the kids could ever afford buying that cottage. All right, it's just out of reach. And so what you want to do is you want to leave it to the kids. Now I'm going to recap last hour in about 30 seconds. So there's a life cycle. Number one, you got to recognize there's a life cycle to cottages. The first is little kid life cycle. When the little kid's little, loves the cottage. When the kid's a teenager, hates the cottage. When the kid's older, but not quite, they don't have kids yet, right? Older than a teenager, but not a parent yet. They don't hate the cottage. They kind of like the cottage, right? But they got other things going on. They need to spend the money for something else, so they sell the cottage or they're interested in the cottage. Now that's gone. Then they have kids, and they tell the kids about what a wondrous place it was, where they learned to swim and everything else. Of course, that's long gone to buy a car, pay the taxes, tuition, what have you. Now, the reality is that if you didn't have the cottage to sell, you'd have figured out some other way to pay the taxes, buy the car, pay the tuition. You'd have figured it out. All right, because there's other people out there who don't have cottages, and they figure it out. But now you've lost the opportunity, and all you can do is show your kids curling pictures, faded pictures. Well, of course, nowadays you show them on your cell phone, I guess. So anyway, vibrant color pictures of how cool it was back in the day when you could go to the cottage, which is now belongs to somebody from Chicago. Thanks for nothing. So What people do to avoid that is they put all the kids on the deed, which is disaster. We call it the circular firing squad. So if you put all your kids on the deed to your house, shame on you. Same way if you did the ladybird deed, I don't care. The problem is with the relationship between the kids. There's no rules when they do this. There's no rules whatsoever. If your kid wants to bring 20 friends on the 4th of July, show up unannounced and pitch tents on the lawn, they're perfectly able to do that. Legally, they can do that. It may violate the zoning or whatever, but they can do that. The other kids cannot exclude them. That's true whether it's tenants in common or joint tenants with rights of survivorship, which is what most people do, which is absolutely terrible, the joint tenants. Now, here's the thing with tenants in common, right? If it's tenant, I didn't mention this last hour, but if it's tenants in common, you can sue for what they call partition. You can go to court and say, Judgy Wudgy, let us out of this thing. We can't stand each other. We hate each other. We're at each other's throat. All right, I want to cash in my share. They won't let me have mud wrestling in the front yard. Very oppressive to me, et cetera. Let me out. Sell the thing. And then the court will order a sale under the partition rules. And now there goes the cottage. You wanted the cottage to be preserved? Oh, it's not going to be preserved. Okay? With joint tenants, that's what tenants in common. You do the joint tenants with rights of survivorship, which frankly is more common, more popular, right? If you do the other one, you can't get out. You can't get rid of the bum, right? The one who's making everyone's life hell. You can't get rid of them, right? And they can't cash in their share either. Now, maybe you make a deal with them. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, what can you do? The answer is nothing. You got to put up with them. And if they decide to bring 20 people this year and another 20 people next year and then crash the Thanksgiving, they can do that as joint tenants with rights of survivorship, right? You can't stop it. You say, I paid all the taxes. I paid all the utilities. I paid all the upkeep. Good for you. All right? You get a cookie. Hooray. You did all that. All right? This is the problem when you put the kids on the deed, whether it's a ladybird deed or an outright distribution right now. And I'm not even getting into the mess you made of Medicaid when you do this. I'm not even getting into that. I'm just saying, based on what you have done by putting the kids on the, and I know Uncle Charlie worked out for him fine with Uncle Charlie. Our friends at church did it. The people 2 doors down did it. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I know. I'm not saying it never works, but you got to realize when things work, people brag about it. When they don't work, they clam up. Plus, when you get that kind of strife and torment and all the rest of it, number one, not only do people not talk about it, but eventually they get out, right? And they sell out to the person from Chicago, and now everybody gets their money, and it's wonderful, all right? And you never hear what actually happened. You got to realize that. The second way that people do it is the corporate model. The corporate model is where you do a limited liability company, you have all the rules, blah, blah, blah. That's wonderful. Now you know who gets to use it when, and everybody kind of agreed to that, right? So you've got some more enforceability. You've actually got some expectations. Expectations, very important, right? You can't manage life without expectations. So now you've got some expectations, and there's some enforceability on those expectations. The problem with the corporate model is when one kid decides, I want the car, the tuition, I got to pay my taxes, what have you, I'm selling my interest here, my LLC interest. And again, I'm not even visiting on the Medicaid aspects of this, which are disastrous, but just the idea, I want my money now, right? Well, if they want their money now, you have to give it to them. And what happens, this is not a legal thing, this is just what I've observed over the years. When one kid wants out, they all want out. Because nobody's got the money to pay that kid off. You have to sell the property to pay your brother, sister, cousin, whoever it is, with that interest. It doesn't happen 100% of the time. It's only like 99%. All right? When one wants out, it collapses that deal. Now, there is a way to fix this. It's called the national park model. And when we get back from the break, I'll be talking more about that. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And this, of course, is the place where we talk about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law. If you have a question, comment, or concern you'd like to get on the air, well, we'd like to get it on for you. And that's easy to do. Just give us a call, 616-774-2424. That'll get your question. Well, you still have to talk. You know, I mean, it's a cooperative effort. Let's put it that way. But if you give us a call at 616-774-2424, drop me an email, david@davidcarrierlaw.com. Or if you'd like to, this is only if you'd like to, you can go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com. All kinds of great information on the website right there. So, there's all different kinds of ways you can do this thing. Or just take another sip of coffee as you're looking at the loons over the lake. You know, if that's what you're into today. It is the 4th of July weekend. We've been talking about cottages. How do we save them? How do we preserve them? The thing is, so much of what folks usually do, and I guess this is kind of fundamental, so much of what people usually do does not serve them well. This is true with traditional estate planning. You know, people do trusts, right? And we're a big fan of trusts. We use trusts. But not all trusts are the same. You know, trust is just a tool. So I could say I'm a big fan of hammers. I like hammers. And I have several hammers, and depending on which job I need to do, I take the short handle sledge, or I use a framing hammer, or I might use the claw hammer. And, you know, sometimes you use a little, you're doing a pinewood derby. You don't use the sledgehammer, right? You need a little tack hammer there. That kind of thing. And that's what trusts are. They're really just tools. Just talking, yesterday, go to the ice cream place, sitting at the picnic table and, talking with a guy, and, I drive the old guy. I have some old cars, so like to drive the old cars around. We get talking about it, and, who are you and what do you do? And we're talking about that. And he's like, oh, we just did our trust. And I said, no kidding. Tell me about it. And sure enough, they did the typical, revocable trust. There's no funding. The thing's going to fail. They'll wind up in probate, blah, blah. I mean, what do you say? What do you say to somebody like that? It's like, is trust-based planning a good idea? Yeah. But the way it's usually done usually leads to failure. And I'm not even talking about the blunt force, ladybird deeds, put the kids on the deed, beneficiary deed. I'm talking about somebody who, no doubt, was told by somebody else that this is a good thing, which it is. It can be, right? Doing the revocable trust, the living trust, it's not a bad foundation, right? You wouldn't say, oh, that's a bad idea. You'd say, well, that's a good idea, but as with so many other things, the devil's in the details. All right? How is it actually working here? What is the process? How are you going to make sure that your stuff is actually in the trust? And it was the typical, paid $3,000 for it, right? Which is not an insignificant amount of money. That's a lot of money, $3,000. But if you got nothing for it, if what you got was a one-way ticket to probate, which is what you typically get with those things, that's just the way it is. People are like, oh, I have a trust. And this is the thing that absolutely, I just heard it again recently. So it's kind of top of mind here. It's like, it drives me nuts because the attorneys blame the clients, right? Because in order to make a trust work, think about this now. Think about the trust is like a shopping cart. Okay, you're at the store and you're carrying all the groceries around. You've got everything in your name, right? So it's your house, it's your bank account, it's your savings, it's whatever you've got. It's all in your name, right? Which is fine because now you're in complete control. Nothing matter with that. That's good. You should be in control of your stuff while you're alive, while you can do it. Why not? That's a good idea. But everyone, avoid probate, save taxes, get it to the kids. All after death kinds of things. That's what people tend to be most concerned about. How do I avoid probate? How do I save taxes? How do I get it to my kids? And what you really ought to be worried about, in my opinion, you really ought to be worried about, how do I hang on to this while I'm alive, while my spouse is alive? Dementia is a 70% shot. If you're 65, you got a 70, according to the government, go to longtermcare.gov. That's where it is. On average, if you're 65, you get a 70% shot of 3 years of skilled care. I'm not making this stuff up. Maybe they're making it up. I don't know. But it is the government. It is the government. It is your tax dollars at work. So I guess don't be surprised if they're making it up. But it's, I don't know. I'm not, it doesn't seem crazy to me. 70% of folks do need skilled care. Now, some of that's nursing home, some of it's assisted living, some of it's at-home care. And, of course, we'd all prefer the at-home care. But that's the deal. And you completely ignore it. This estate planning completely ignores it. Doesn't even, the powers of attorney are even insufficient to do the work that needs to get done at the time. They don't even put the tools in the toolbox, let alone take care of it. Okay, and that's what this guy's got. But see, that's not the worst part of it. So I think it's wrong-headed, right? The thing is not avoid probate, save taxes, get it to the kids. The thing should be, how do I hang on to this money for me, for my spouse, right? Let's figure that one out. Once we figured that one out, then we can worry about avoiding probate, saving taxes, getting it to the kids. So so here's the thing. You're in the grocery store, you're carrying all this stuff around. That's all the stuff that's in your name. If you slip and fall, you're making a mess, all right? Slip and fall, death or disability, right? That's like slip and fall. You're carrying the stuff around in your name. Death or disability means you go from having complete control over the stuff to no control at all. And when you have no control at all, the stuff goes flying. You slip and fall, boom, now the stuff goes flying. The probate court is the janitor that comes out to clean up your mess. Clean up on aisle 3, right? The guy who comes out to clean up that mess with the sawdust and the whatever, right? They haul you away, right? But the stuff, that's what goes through probate. That's what probate is. Probate is cleaning up the mess. Probate is trying to figure out where your stuff should go now that you're not around anymore to control it. Does that make sense? Your will, this is the other thing. People are like, oh, I have a will. I don't have to worry about probate. It's like, what are you kidding? A will is just instructions to the janitor. You're just saying, hey, here, Joe, this is where I want my stuff to go. Well, Joe don't read so good. Okay? Maybe he reads it. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe they find it. Maybe they don't. Who knows? Right? You don't know. And now that will, which is just instructions to the janitor on where your stuff should go, that's all part of probate. You don't avoid probate with a will. The only way the will works is through probate. Now, along with the janitor comes a couple of his friends. Hourly bill, all right? Probate costs. This is attorney fees. This is court costs and all the rest. Frankly, the vast majority, 80+% of probate costs are attorney fees. Is anybody surprised by that? You shouldn't be, right? Most of it is the probate administration. And they're not dealing with you anymore, right? They're not dealing with you squeezing the nickels. They're dealing with the kids. And the kids are looking forward to getting an inheritance. The attorney is the way to do that through probate. After attorney fees comes, well, I call it Red Gretsch, but after attorney fees comes estate recovery. If you received help with long-term care, if you did receive, remember that, the house is protected. Yeah, it's protected till it goes through probate, and then the state's coming back. They want to get paid back if it goes through probate. So you want to avoid probate. That's a good idea. Is avoiding probate a good idea? Yeah, it's a good idea. The question is, how do you do it, right? How do you do it most effectively? Because if you go through probate, your will governs to some extent. The janitor cleans up the mess. The attorney fees take their chunk. Is it 4%? Is it 10%? I don't know, somewhere in there, right? And then you can still lose all of it if you received help with the long-term care. Now, I'm going to tell you in the next segment, I'm going to tell you how the trust is supposed to work and why it's such a freaking scam. the way it's usually used, because there's no other word for it. Listening to the David Carrier Show, I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. We've been talking this week about how do we preserve the cottage. A lot of folks at the cottage this weekend, and this is how you this is how you do it. This is how we do it. Anyway, and then the whole idea of the trust. Just talking to a fella at the the roadside ice cream stand, and they just did a trust, and well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? It's just fresh in my mind because I just had this conversation yesterday, and it's the typical. It's just so annoying because people are trying to do the right thing, and you've got this tension between what actually works and what they think they're doing, right? Everybody wants to avoid probate, save taxes, get it to the kids. That's why you do the revocable trust, and you wind up going through probate anyway. Here's why. Remember, you own everything in your own name right now. You're like the shopper in the supermarket, right, who's carrying the groceries around, right? You don't have a cart. You're just carrying those things around. You came in for a loaf of bread, and now you got a million things you can't live without, so you're carrying that stuff around. Now you slip and fall, death or disability. The stuff goes from, you're in control to you're not in control. You make a big mess. Your will is a note in the mess that you're hoping the janitor will find and distribute the property according to the note. Along with the janitor comes his pals, hourly bill, right? This is where 4 to 10% of the estate goes. Most of the expense of probate costs is, of course, attorney fees. No surprise with that one. But then, at the end of the day, if you received help with long-term care, Medicaid, now the state of Michigan wants everything else that you've got. So this whole idea, my house is protected, my car is protected, blah, blah, that's nonsense. It is not protected. Not if it goes through probate. If it goes through probate, they're coming after it. And you may say, well, that's fine. I don't want to leave anything to my rotten kids anyway. I say, fine. You don't want to leave anything to your rotten kids? Then I guess you got no problem. Give it all back to the state. Why not? But if you'd like your kids to get something, then you might consider that focusing on you instead of focusing on them would be a good idea. Okay, we've got Jerry on line 2 who wants to force his brother to sell the house. Go, Jerry, go.
Good morning, Mr. Carrier.
Hey, how are you?
I have 3 brothers. My younger brother got his hands on my mom's titles to a couple of her homes that she owns. One's in Florida, one's in Michigan. We're trying to sell one of the homes in Florida, and my brother won't give up the title to the house to my other brother, who is the legal.
Well, is brother on the deed? Is brother on the deed? That's the question. Is he on the title?
No.
Brother's not on the title?
No. We are all in the trust.
Okay.
The only name on the title is my mom, and my brother won't hand it over, so she can sign it so we can sell it.
Oh. Is it like a modular or something like that? Mobile home?
Well, yeah. Well, it is, yes.
Yeah. So just go to the Secretary of State, get another title. Is mom competent?
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Is mom competent?
She has been diagnosed with light dementia.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, frankly, for a lot of people, getting that first diagnosis is the thing that gets them in to do the planning. Okay. So just because you have a diagnosis doesn't mean you're out of it. I mean, but it's a good wake-up call. I'm glad you guys are doing the things you're doing now. Very important. No, all mom has to do is go to, just go to Secretary of State and say, I don't have the title. I'm the person. Here's my ID card, right? Here's the name of the property, et cetera, et cetera. In Michigan, once a day, they'll give you an instant title. So that's what
Okay.
Yeah, and run that jerk.
Well, I know. we're trying to stay out of that part of it. But I just thought I'd call and get a professional opinion. I appreciate your help, David. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. Boy, I wish everything was that easy. It was all that easy to sell, to fix. Yeah, just go to Secretary of State, get a replacement title. Mom's there, no big deal. Okay, I got 3 minutes here. So the trust that people do is the shopping cart. You put your stuff in the shopping cart, so when you slip and fall, it doesn't go flying. It doesn't make a mess. That's what the trust does. That's what a trust is. It's a way not to make a mess. The problem is you're not going to put the stuff in the trust. You may not believe me. Fine, don't believe me. But one survey, 96% of trusts fail. They wind up going through probate anyway because you don't put the stuff in the trust. And you say, well, I wouldn't pay $3,000 and not follow through. Yeah, you would. People do it all the time. They don't really understand what they're doing. I mean, this is just reality, okay? Reality check time on 4th of July, all right? People don't put the stuff in the trust, and everybody knows it. You're a sucker, and everybody knows you're a sucker because the banker knows that you didn't put the stuff in the trust. Your accountant knows it. The insurance guy knows it. Your financial advisor knows it. The attorney themselves know it. And the thing that just absolutely grinds me is they put a memo in there in that binder that you got. There's a memo in there that says, hey, it's your job to put the stuff in the trust, knowing full well that you won't do it. That memo is just CYA, right? When your kids complain later on, why do we have to go through probate? So that they can haul out that memo and say, hey, look, the letter or whatever it is, say, hey, look, mom and dad didn't do what they were supposed to do. It's not my fault. It's mom and dad's fault, right? And the thing that irritates me no end, I mean, that's just isn't that just like the worst kind of scam? It's just a freaking scam. Because they know you're not going to do it. They're not giving you this paper so that you'll do it. They're giving you this paper so they have an excuse for not doing it themselves or not explaining it all. That's what this piece of paper is about. You don't get a 96% failure rate out of good faith efforts to get something done. I mean, who has a 96% failure rate? So we've got 8 or 10 folks, I forget how many exactly, paralegals. It's a 2 to 6 month process after you sign documents that we have to take people through in order to actually get the stuff in the trust so that the trust doesn't fail. Are trusts a good idea? If done properly, they're a wonderful idea, very good tool, all right? But that's not how it's usually being done. I'm just saying. You've been listening to The David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, wishing everybody happy Independence Day, happy 4th of July, all right? Don't blow anything up with the firecrackers. Talk to you again next week. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney.